The great hall of suitors was empty again. Princess Yuna stood alone in the center of the massive room, her silver gown catching the light from the dying sun outside. The last candidate had just left. He did not even say goodbye. He simply looked at her with fear in his eyes, bowed quickly, and walked out. His servants followed him. The doors closed with a sound that echoed through the hall like a funeral drum. Yuna did not move. She had learned not to move when these things happened. If she moved, she might cry. If she cried, the cameras hidden in the walls would capture it. If the cameras captured it, the whole galaxy would see the princess of the Valorian Empire weeping like a child. She would not give them that satisfaction. This was the seventh suitor in 3 years. 7 princes, lords, and heirs from powerful empires across the galaxy. 7 rejections. Each one more public than the last. Each one broadcast to 1,000 worlds where billions of beings watched and laughed. The Valorian Empire was dying. Everyone knew this. Their sun, once bright and golden, was becoming unstable. Scientists had calculated that within 50 years, it would expand and consume their homeworld. 8 billion Valorians would die unless they found a way to leave. But leaving required ships. Ships required resources. Resources required allies. And allies required marriage. This was the old way, the ancient tradition. When an empire faced extinction, the royal family would marry into another empire. The two peoples would merge. Resources would combine. The dying empire would be saved through blood and ceremony. But no one wanted to marry Princess Yuna. The galaxy whispered that she was cursed. The first suitor, a prince from the Kelthari Dominion, had died in a shuttle accident 1 week after announcing their engagement. The second suitor had survived, but his family's trading company collapsed within a month. The third suitor's planet suffered an earthquake that killed thousands. By the fourth rejection, the whispers had become shouts. Princess Yuna was bad luck. Princess Yuna brought death. Princess Yuna was poison wrapped in silk. Yuna knew these stories were foolish. She was not cursed. There was no such thing as curses. These were coincidences, nothing more. But the galaxy did not care about logic. The galaxy cared about stories, and the story of the cursed princess was too good to ignore. She finally allowed herself to move. Her legs carried her to the tall windows that overlooked the capital city. Below, millions of her people lived their lives, worked their jobs, raised their children. They trusted her father to save them. They trusted the royal family to find a solution. But the royal family had failed. She had failed. Her father, Emperor Hansu, found her there an hour later. He was an old man now, his hair white, his face lined with worry. He had been strong once. He had been powerful. But watching his empire die had broken something inside him. He stood beside his daughter and said nothing for a long time. They watched the sun together. It was beautiful even now. Perhaps more beautiful because they knew it would kill them. The Kelthari ambassador laughed, Yuna finally said. Her voice was steady. She had practiced keeping it steady. He did not even try to hide it. He laughed and said his prince had made the wise choice. Emperor Hansu closed his eyes. I saw the broadcast. The whole galaxy saw it, father. They are calling me the beggar princess now. They say I should be grateful that anyone even considers me. They are fools. They are right. Yuna turned to face him. Her eyes were dry, but there was pain in them. Deep pain that she had carried for years. Look at what I offer. A dying world. A desperate people. A curse that follows me like a shadow. What prince would choose this? What empire would accept this burden? Emperor Hansu reached out and took his daughter's hand. His grip was weak. He was dying too, slowly, from a disease that their doctors could not cure. Perhaps this was part of the curse. Perhaps everything was falling apart at once. You are not a burden, he said. You are the hope of our people. Then our people have no hope. The words hung in the air between them. Neither could deny their truth. That night the broadcasts were cruel. Yuna sat in her private chambers and watched them on a small screen. She should not have watched. She knew it would hurt, but she could not look away. Commentators from across the galaxy discussed her failure. They showed images of her standing alone in the Great Hall. They replayed the moment when the Kelthari prince turned away. They analyzed her face, her posture, her gown. They found flaws in everything. The Valorians have nothing to offer, one commentator said. He was a Vrin, an insectoid creature with compound eyes that showed no emotion. Their technology is outdated. Their military is weak. Their world is dying. And their princess carries a curse that has killed 3 suitors. Why would anyone accept this marriage? Another commentator, a female from a species Una did not recognize, nodded her large head. The Valorians should accept their fate with dignity. Some empires are meant to end. This is the natural order of things. Una turned off the screen. She sat in darkness for a long time. The city lights glowed outside her window. Somewhere out there, children were sleeping. Parents were working. Elderly people were remembering better times. They did not know that the latest negotiation had failed. They did not know that their princess had been rejected again. They still had hope. Una wished she could share their ignorance. She thought about the suitors who had come before. The Kelthari prince had been handsome, arrogant, and cold. And he had looked at her like she was a transaction, not a person. The others had been similar. They came for power, for resources, for strategic advantage. None of them had come for her. Perhaps that was the true curse. Not bad luck, not death. Just the simple truth that no one in the galaxy saw her as a person worth knowing. She was a symbol, a bargaining chip, a liability. She was everything except a living being with thoughts and feelings and dreams. Una allowed herself to weep, just this once, just in the darkness where no cameras could see. She wept for her people, for her father, for the world that would soon burn. And she wept for herself, for the princess that no one wanted, for the woman that no one loved. Tomorrow she would be strong again. Tomorrow she would smile and stand tall and pretend that everything would be fine. But tonight she was just a girl facing the end of everything, alone in the dark, wondering if anyone in the universe cared whether she lived or died. The stars outside her window offered no answer. They simply burned, cold and distant, indifferent to the small tragedy unfolding on one small world, in one small corner of the galaxy. And across that galaxy, the laughter continued. The Galactic Council met on a massive station that floated between stars. It was neutral territory, a place where the 6 great powers could discuss matters without fear of attack. The station was ancient, built by a species that had died out millions of years ago. No one remembered their name. No one cared. They were gone, and the living had taken their place. Ambassador Sora walked through the corridors with her head held high. She was small compared to most species here. Humans were not impressive creatures. They had no claws, no armor, no venom, no telepathy. They were soft and weak and easily killed. The other species reminded them of this constantly. Sora had served as Earth's representative for 5 years. In that time, she had learned to ignore the insults. She had learned to smile when others laughed at her. She had learned to fight with words instead of weapons. It was exhausting work, but someone had to do it. Today, the council was discussing the Valorian question. This was what they called it now. Not the Valorian crisis, not the Valorian tragedy, the Valorian question. As if 8 billion lives were just a problem to be solved, a puzzle to be debated. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Each of the 6 great powers had a section. The Kelthari Dominion sat in black robes, their pale faces showing no emotion. The Vrin occupied transparent pods filled with the specific atmosphere they needed to breathe. The Torani, massive creatures with 4 arms and tusks, lounged in reinforced chairs. The Yashri, beautiful beings with feathered wings, perched on high platforms. The Molten Collective, entities of living metal, stood motionless in their designated area. And then there were the humans, the smallest section, the fewest representatives, the youngest species in the room. Sora took her seat as the session began. The Kelthari ambassador, a tall male named Lord Bune, stood to speak first. His voice was smooth and cold. "The Valorian Empire is dying," he said. "This is not opinion. This is fact. Their sun will consume them within 50 years. Their people will perish unless action is taken. The question before this council is simple. What action should we take?" The Vrin representative clicked and buzzed in their pod. A translation device converted the sounds into words. "We propose quarantine. The so-called curse affecting the Valorian princess may be biological in nature, a virus, a parasite, something that spreads through contact. We cannot risk contamination of healthy populations. There is no curse, Sora said loudly. Several heads turned toward her. There is no virus. These are superstitions. The deaths and disasters were coincidences. Lord Boone smiled. It was not a kind smile. The human speaks. How charming. Tell me, Ambassador, how long has your species been part of this council? 80 years. We have been here for 10,000. Perhaps you should listen more and speak less. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Sora felt her face grow hot, but she did not look away. The Valorians need allies, she continued. They need ships. They need resources. They need help. And who will provide this help? Lord Bjorn asked. The Kelthari Dominion has already offered a solution. The Valorians can join us as a client state. They will surrender their independence, their government, their royal family. In exchange, we will transport their people to habitable worlds within our territory. They will serve us for 3 generations to repay the debt. That is slavery, Sora said. That is survival. Lord Bayun spread his hands. We offer life. What do you offer, human? Words? Sympathy? Your species has nothing. No great fleet. No vast resources. No power worth mentioning. You sit in this chamber by our generosity, not by your merit. Sora wanted to respond, but the Tarani ambassador spoke next. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. We say let them die. Some species are meant to end. This is nature. The weak fall. The strong survive. The Valorians had their time. Now that time is over. Sora stared at him in horror. You would let 8 billion people die? We have let more die for less reason. The Tyranny showed his tusks. Do not lecture us on morality, little human. Your species fought wars that killed millions of your own kind. We know your history. You are no better than us. The debate continued for hours. The Yashri proposed taking Valorian children and raising them as servants. The Molten Collective suggested harvesting Valorian technology before their world burned. Each proposal was more heartless than the last. And through it all, the humans sat silent, powerless, ignored. During a recess, Sora wandered the station's observation deck. She needed to be alone. She needed to think. She needed to remember why she had taken this job in the first place. She found someone else already there. Princess Yuna stood at the great window, looking out at the stars. She wore a simple gray dress, not her royal finery. Without her crown and jewels, she looked small, young, tired. Sora approached quietly. Your Highness. Yuna turned. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying, but her face showed no other sign of weakness. You are the human ambassador. Yes, Ambassador Sora. I watched you speak in the chamber. You defended my people. Yuna paused. No one else did. Someone had to. Yuna smiled, but there was no happiness in it. You were very brave and very foolish. The Kelthari will remember your words. They do not forgive easily. I know. Sora moved to stand beside her at the window. But I could not stay silent. What they are proposing is wrong. Wrong does not matter here. Only power matters. And my people have no power left. Yuna looked back at the stars. I have accepted my fate, Ambassador. I will die with my world. Perhaps that is fitting. The cursed princess should not survive when her people do not. Sora studied the young woman beside her. She saw pain. She saw resignation. She saw a person who had been beaten down so many times that she had forgotten how to stand. You are not cursed, Sora said. Everyone says that I am. Everyone is wrong. Yuna laughed softly. You humans are strange. You say things that you cannot possibly know. You believe things that make no sense. You fight battles that you cannot win. She shook her head. I do not understand your species. Neither do we, Sora admitted, but we keep trying anyway. They stood together in silence for a while. 2 women from different worlds, different species, different circumstances. But in that moment, they understood each other. They were both outsiders. They were both underestimated. They were both fighting against a universe that wanted them to fail. Sora returned to the council chamber with an idea forming in her mind. It was a dangerous idea, a foolish idea, an idea that would probably fail, but humans were good at dangerous, foolish things. That was perhaps the only advantage they had. She contacted General Minho that night. She explained her plan. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You want a human to marry the cursed princess?" he finally said. "Yes. You want us to tie ourselves to a dying empire that the entire galaxy has abandoned?" "Yes. You realize this could destroy us, politically, economically, perhaps literally." "Yes," General Minho sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had seen too much and expected too little. "Find me a volunteer, Ambassador. Find me one human stupid enough to say yes. Then we will talk." Sora ended the call and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, among the billions of humans scattered across 100 colonies, there had to be one who would stand up. There had to be one who would say yes when the whole galaxy said no. She just had to find him. Lieutenant Taiho was fixing a water pump when the message arrived. He was covered in mud, his uniform was torn, and he had not slept in 2 days. Around him, the refugee camp stretched for miles. Thousands of Valorians lived here, on a small moon at the edge of their dying empire. They had fled the inner worlds where the sun's radiation had already become dangerous. They had nothing. They were no one. And Taiho was trying to give them clean water. The pump was old. The parts were worn. The manual was written in a language he did not understand. But Taiho had learned to work with what he had. He was an engineer, trained to solve problems. This was just another problem. His communicator beeped. He ignored it. The pump was more important. It beeped again, and again, and again. Finally, he wiped his hands on his pants and answered, "Lieutenant Taiho here." "Lieutenant," it was General Minho's voice. "Report to the command ship immediately. We have a situation." Taiho looked at the pump. It was almost working. Another hour and these people would have clean water. "Sir, I am in the middle of something important." "This is more important. Trust me." The line went dead. Taiho stared at his communicator for a moment. Then he looked at the Valorian family watching him from nearby. A mother, a father, 3 children. They had been waiting for days for water that did not taste like metal and death. The youngest child, a girl no older than 5, smiled at him. He smiled back. "I will return," he told them. "I promise." 3 hours later, Taiho stood in General Minho's office on the command ship. Ambassador Sora was there too. They both looked at him like he was a puzzle they were trying to solve. "Do you know why you are here?" General Minho asked. "No, sir. We have an opportunity, a dangerous opportunity, perhaps a foolish one." The general leaned back in his chair. "The Valorian Empire needs a marriage alliance. Their princess needs a husband. If a human marries her, we gain access to Valorian technology. Their knowledge of terraforming, medicine, and stellar engineering could advance our species by centuries." Taiho nodded slowly. He had heard about the princess. Everyone had heard about the princess. "The galaxy says she is cursed. The galaxy says many things. Most of them are stupid." Ambassador Sora stepped forward. "Lieutenant, I need you to understand something. This is not a normal mission. Whoever volunteers for this will become a target. The Kelthari Dominion does not want this marriage to happen. They want the Valorians desperate and powerless. They will do anything to stop it." "Why are you telling me this?" The general and the ambassador exchanged looks. Finally, Sora spoke again. "Your service record is impressive, Lieutenant. You have spent 3 years in Valorian space. You learned their language. You built schools and hospitals in their refugee camps. You refused evacuation orders twice so you could help more people. You are not a soldier. You are not a diplomat. But you understand these people. You care about them." "Many people care about them," Taiho said. "Many people say they care. Few actually do anything." General Minho stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars burned cold and distant. "We are not ordering you to do this, Lieutenant. We cannot order anyone to do this. It must be a choice, a free choice." Taiho was silent for a long moment. He thought about the refugee camps. He thought about the children who had no future. He thought about the dying sun and the dying world and the dying empire that the galaxy had abandoned. He thought about the princess. He had seen her on broadcasts. She always looked so calm, so composed, so perfect. But behind her eyes, he saw something else. He saw loneliness. He saw pain. He saw a woman carrying a weight too heavy for one person. "If I do this," he said slowly, "what happens to the Valorian people? If the marriage succeeds, humanity and Valoria become allies. We combine resources. We help them evacuate their world. We give them a future." Sora paused. "If it fails, we gain nothing. We lose everything, and the Valorians die anyway. And the princess? She dies with her world, unless someone saves her." Taiho closed his eyes. He remembered the little girl in the refugee camp, her smile, her hope. She did not know that the galaxy had given up on her. She did not know that her future was measured in decades, not centuries. She only knew that a human had promised to fix the water pump and make everything better. He had made a promise. He intended to keep it. "I volunteer," he said. General Minho turned to face him. "You understand what you are agreeing to? You will marry a woman you have never met. You will live among a species that is not your own. You will become a target for every power that wants the Valorians to fail. Your life will be in danger every day." "Yes." "And you still volunteer?" "Yes." Ambassador Sora stepped closer. Her eyes searched his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that he did not mean what he said. She found nothing. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this? You have nothing to gain." Tejo thought about the question. He thought about his life, his choices, the path that had brought him here. He had joined the military to help people. He had requested assignment to Valorian space because no one else wanted it. He had spent years building things and fixing things and saving things, because that was what he was good at. "Someone has to be first," he finally said. "Someone has to stand up when everyone else sits down. Someone has to say yes when the whole galaxy says no." He shrugged. "Why not me?" "You could die," Sora said. "I could die tomorrow. I could die in a shuttle accident. I could die of disease or old age or a falling piece of metal. Everyone dies eventually. The question is what you do before you die. The question is whether you matter." He looked at both of them, the general and the ambassador, the two most powerful humans he had ever met. "Those refugees matter," he said. "That princess matters. 8 billion people who the galaxy has abandoned matter. I can help them. I can try to save them. And if I die trying, at least I died for something real." General Minho was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well, Lieutenant. Prepare yourself. In 3 days, you will travel to the Valorian homeworld. You will meet the princess. You will begin the formal courtship process." He paused. "And God help you, because the galaxy certainly will not." Tejo saluted and left the office. That night, he sat alone in his quarters and looked at the stars. He was not a hero. He was not special. He was just a man who fixed broken things. But maybe that was enough. Maybe the galaxy did not need heroes. Maybe it just needed people who showed up. People who did the work. People who refused to look away when others were suffering. He thought about the princess again. He wondered what she was like. He wondered if she would accept him. He wondered if she would see him as just another suitor trying to use her, or if she would see something more. He wondered if he could love her. He did not know the answer. He did not know if love was possible between two strangers from different worlds. But he knew one thing for certain. He would try. He would try with everything he had, and he would not stop trying until he succeeded or died. That was all any person could do, and sometimes, against all odds, that was enough. The announcement hit the galactic news networks like a bomb. Within hours, every station, every broadcast, every social feed was talking about the same thing. A human had volunteered to marry Princess Yuna of the Valorian Empire. A human, the youngest, weakest, most insignificant species in the galaxy. The laughter was immediate. Lord Bune, the Kelthari ambassador, gave an interview that was watched by billions. He sat in his elegant chambers, dressed in black silk, his pale face twisted with amusement. "This is a joke," he said. "It must be a joke. The humans send one of their lowest officers to marry the princess of an ancient empire? A lieutenant? Not even a captain or a general?" He laughed, a cold and cruel sound. "The Valorians have truly fallen far. Even they deserve better than an ape in a uniform." Comedians across the galaxy made sketches about the situation. One popular show featured an actor in a cheap human mask pretending to be Taiho. He walked on stage, scratched himself like a primitive creature, and said, "I fix pumps. Maybe I fix empire too." The audience roared with laughter. The sketch was shared billions of times. News commentators analyzed Taiho's service record and found nothing impressive. He had no noble blood. He had no great wealth. He had won no battles, conquered no worlds, achieved no fame. He was ordinary in every way. "This is desperation," one analyst said. "The humans know they have nothing to offer, so they offer their most expendable citizen. If he dies, they lose nothing. If he somehow succeeds, they gain everything." It is cynical. It is pathetic. It is exactly what we would expect from such a primitive species. On the Valorian homeworld, the reaction was mixed. Some people were insulted that their princess would be matched with a human. Others were grateful that anyone had come forward at all. Most were simply confused. They knew nothing about humans. They had never met one. They only knew what the broadcast told them, and the broadcast said that humans were weak, stupid, and unimportant. Princess Yuna received the news in her private chambers. Her advisors gathered around her, their faces grave. "You cannot accept this," the chief advisor said. His name was Lord Dohan, and he had served her father for 40 years. "A human? The galaxy will mock us even more than they already do. Our dignity is all we have left." "Our dignity will not save us from the sun," Yuna replied quietly. "Neither will a human." Lord Dohan shook his head. "I have studied their species. They are young, impulsive, emotional. They lack the discipline and wisdom of older races. This lieutenant has no experience in royal courts, no understanding of our traditions, no ability to navigate galactic politics. He will fail the trials. He will embarrass us. And when he fails, the galaxy will laugh louder than ever." Yuna listened to her advisors argue. They debated for hours, presenting facts and figures, histories and predictions. They spoke of honor and strategy and the proper order of things. They spoke as if the decision was theirs to make. Finally, she raised her hand. Silence fell. "Show me his record," she said. They brought her the files. She read them alone, late into the night. She read about his engineering work in the refugee camps. She read about the schools he had built, the hospitals he had supplied, the water systems he had created from nothing. She read about the time he had refused to evacuate a burning transport until every passenger was safe. She read about the medals he had declined because he said he was just doing his job. She read about a man who seemed to care about her people more than her own suitors ever had. At dawn, she summoned her advisors again. "I will meet him," she announced. Lord Dohan stepped forward. "Your Highness, please reconsider. The Kelthari are already mocking us. If you give this human any legitimacy—" "I said I will meet him." Her voice was steel. "My decision is made." 3 days later, Lieutenant Taiho arrived on the Valorian homeworld. His shuttle landed in the royal spaceport. He walked down the ramp in his formal military uniform, freshly pressed and perfectly clean. He was not tall. He was not impressive. He looked exactly like what he was, a working man who had been thrust into a situation far beyond his experience. Cameras surrounded him. Reporters shouted questions. Guards watched with skeptical eyes. The whole galaxy was watching, waiting for him to do something foolish, something that would confirm everything they believed about humans. Taiho ignored them all. He walked with steady steps toward the palace, following his escort without speaking. His face showed no fear, no excitement, no emotion at all. He simply moved forward, one step at a time, like a man who had a job to do and intended to do it. Princess Yuna watched his arrival from a high window. She saw the crowds, the cameras, the chaos. She saw the way the reporters tried to provoke him, shouting insults and questions designed to make him lose his temper. She saw him walk through it all without a single reaction. She saw strength, not the strength of muscles or weapons, the strength of a man who knew exactly who he was and did not need anyone else to tell him. Their first meeting took place in a small private garden behind the palace. No cameras, no advisors, just the two of them, standing among flowers that would soon burn when the sun expanded. Taiho bowed deeply. It was a Valorian bow, executed perfectly. Someone had taught him. Someone had taken the time to learn their customs. "Your Highness," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "I am Lieutenant Taiho of the Earth Fleet. I have come to ask for the honor of courting you." Yuna studied him in silence. He was not handsome by Valorian standards. His features were strange, his proportions slightly wrong. But there was something in his eyes. Something warm. Something real. "You know what they say about me," she finally said. "They say I am cursed. They say everyone who comes close to me suffers. I have heard the stories. And you came anyway." "Yes. Why?" Teho was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be thinking carefully about his answer. "Because you looked lonely," he said. "In the broadcasts, I mean. You always look so calm, so controlled, so perfect. But behind your eyes I saw someone who was very much alone. Someone who was facing the end of everything without anyone to stand beside her." He paused. "I know this is strange. I know I am not what you expected. I am not a prince or a warrior or a genius. I am just a man who fixes broken things. But I am here, and I am not leaving." Yuna felt something shift inside her. Something she had not felt in years. Something like hope. "The trials will not be easy," she warned him. "Previous suitors have failed. Some have died." "I know. You might die too." "I might." He smiled slightly. It was a good smile, warm and honest. "But everyone dies eventually. The question is what you do before you die. The question is whether you matter." Yuna looked at this strange human, this impossible volunteer, this man who had crossed the galaxy to stand in her garden and speak of death as if it did not frighten him. "You are very strange," she said. "I have been told this before. I think," she said slowly, "that I would like to know you better." Taiho's smile widened. "Then I will try not to die during the trials." And somewhere in the palace, an advisor was already preparing for failure. Somewhere in the galaxy, comedians were writing new jokes. Somewhere in the Keltari Dominion, Lord Byun was planning something dark. But in the garden, among the dying flowers, two strangers stood together and saw in each other something the galaxy had missed. They saw possibility. The trials had been designed thousands of years ago, when the Valorian Empire was young and powerful. They were meant to test whether a suitor was worthy of joining the royal bloodline. Strength, wisdom, and heart. These were the three qualities that mattered. These were the three trials that every candidate must pass. Previous suitors had arrived with confidence. They had the natural advantages of their species: enhanced strength, telepathic abilities, armored bodies, superior senses. They looked at the trials and saw easy victories. They were wrong. Taiho looked at the trials and saw something different. He saw problems to solve. He saw puzzles to understand. He saw challenges that required thinking, not just power. The first trial was endurance. Taiho was taken to a place called the Scorched Wastes, a vast desert at the equator of the Valorian homeworld. The ground was cracked and dry. The air burned with heat. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. He was given no food, no water, no technology, only the clothes on his back and his own mind. He had to survive 48 hours. The Kelthari prince who had tried this trial brought his natural resistance to heat and his species' ability to store water in their bodies. He walked into the desert with arrogance and walked out after 12 hours, delirious and half dead. He had tried to cross the desert instead of understanding it. Taiho did not try to cross anything. He found shelter in the shade of a rock formation. He dug into the sand and found moisture deep below the surface. He watched how the small insects moved during the cooler hours and rested during the heat of the day. He did not fight the desert. He listened to it. He learned from it. The cameras followed him, broadcasting his every move to the galaxy. Commentators mocked his slow progress. They laughed at his primitive techniques. They predicted his death by the second sunset. But the second sunset came, and Taiho walked out of the desert. He was exhausted, sunburned, and covered in dust. But he was alive. He had passed. The second trial was wisdom. Taiho was brought before a council of 12 Valorian elders, the oldest and wisest minds in the empire. They had served emperors for centuries. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They would ask him 3 questions. If his answers pleased them, he would pass. The first question was simple. What is the purpose of power? Tejo thought for a moment. To protect those who cannot protect themselves. Power that serves only itself is not power. It is weakness pretending to be strong. The elders showed no reaction. They asked the second question. How do you defeat a superior enemy? This was a military question, Tejo realized. The previous suitors had given military answers. They had spoken of tactics, strategies, weapons, and alliances. They had tried to impress with knowledge of warfare. Tejo gave a different answer. You do not defeat a superior enemy. You make the fight irrelevant. You change what you are fighting for. Victory is not killing your enemy. Victory is making your enemy's goals impossible to achieve. The elders leaned forward slightly. They were interested now. The third question was the hardest. What would you die for? Tejo was silent for a long time. The chamber was quiet. Everyone watched. The galaxy waited. Finally he spoke. I would die for a chance. Not for victory, not for glory, not for revenge. Just a chance. A chance for someone I care about to have a better life. A chance for something good to survive when everything else is falling apart. He paused. That is worth dying for. That is the only thing worth dying for. The elders looked at each other. Something passed between them, some silent communication that Tejo could not understand. Then the oldest elder spoke. You have passed. The third trial was hard. This one was secret. No previous candidate had spoken of what they faced. Some had refused to describe it. Others had simply left and never returned. Tejo was led into a chamber deep beneath the palace. It was dark and cold. In the center of the room was a bed, and on the bed lay a child, a Valorian girl, no more than 6 years old. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was weak. She was dying. A Valorian healer stood nearby. She spoke to Tejo in a voice that carried no emotion. This child has a disease that cannot be cured. She will die within days. However, there is one possibility. A transfusion of life force from a compatible donor could save her. Humans are compatible. The procedure would take years from your own life, perhaps decades. You might live to 60 instead of 90. You might never see old age. Tejo looked at the child. She reminded him of the girl in the refugee camp, the one who had smiled at him, the one who had trusted him to fix the water pump. Do it, he said. The healer blinked. You have not asked any questions. You have not asked about the risks. You have not asked if there is another way. Is there another way? No. Then there is nothing to discuss. Tejo rolled up his sleeve. Take whatever you need. Save her. The healer did not move. She looked at him for a long moment, studying his face, searching for doubt or hesitation. This is a test, she finally said. The child is an illusion. The procedure is not real. We wanted to see what you would choose when no one was watching, when there was no glory to be gained, when the only reward was saving a life you did not know. Tejo stared at her. Then he looked at the child, who was already fading, becoming transparent, disappearing into nothing. If it had been real, he said quietly, I would have done it anyway. That is not something you fake. That is not something you pretend. The healer nodded slowly. Yes. We know. She led him out of the chamber. The trial was over. He had passed. That night, Princess Yuna came to see him. He was sitting in the garden where they had first met, looking up at the stars. She sat beside him without speaking. After a while, Tejo broke the silence. The elders told me about the third trial. They said most candidates hesitate. They ask questions. They try to negotiate. Some refuse entirely. Many do, Yuna agreed. The Kelthari prince asked if he could pay someone else to do it instead. Tejo shook his head. That is not how sacrifice works. No, it is not. She looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since they met. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? I do not know. Someone more impressive, perhaps. Someone with titles and achievements and power. She paused. But you are something different. You are genuine. You do not pretend to be something you are not. You do not promise things you cannot deliver. You simply do what you believe is right and accept the consequences. Taiho smiled. That sounds boring. It sounds rare. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, her fingers delicate. The galaxy is full of impressive beings. It is empty of genuine ones. They sat together in the garden for hours, talking about small things. Their childhoods, their fears, their dreams. The galaxy continued to mock them on the broadcast. But in that moment, the galaxy did not matter. What mattered was the connection forming between two unlikely people. What mattered was the hope growing where hope had died. What mattered was the simple truth that sometimes the most extraordinary thing a person can do is simply show up, stand firm, and refuse to leave. Taiho had passed the trials. Now the real challenge would begin. The wedding was beautiful in a way that made even the critics fall silent. Princess Yuna wore silver, a gown that flowed like water and caught the light like stars. Her dark hair was arranged with crystals that had been in her family for 1,000 years. She looked like something from an old legend, a queen from the stories that mothers told their children. Lieutenant Taiho wore his formal uniform. It was simple compared to the elaborate clothes that other suitors had worn, but he stood straight and tall, his eyes fixed on his bride. And somehow he looked exactly right. Not a prince, but something better. A man who knew who he was and did not apologize for it. The ceremony took place in the Grand Temple, a building older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Thousands of Valorians filled the seats. Billions more watched on broadcasts across the stars. Ambassador Sora was there, sitting with General Minho and the small human delegation. They watched their volunteer become something new, something that had never existed before. A human prince, a bridge between worlds. The ceremony blended traditions. Valorian priests spoke the ancient words of their people, invoking blessings from the stars themselves. Taiho added human vows, simple promises spoken in a clear voice that carried through the temple. I promise to stand beside you, he said, in light and in darkness, in hope and in despair. I promise to face whatever comes with you, not behind you or in front of you, but beside you. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your equal, until my last breath, until the stars themselves grow cold. Yuna felt tears on her face. She had not cried in years. She had taught herself not to cry. But now in front of the galaxy that had mocked her, she wept, and she did not care who saw. I accept your vows, she said, and I make my own. I promise to see you, not what the galaxy says you are, but what you truly are. I promise to stand with you against whatever storms may come. I promise to be worthy of the gift you have given me, until my last breath, until the stars themselves grow cold. They kissed. The temple erupted in sound. Valorians cheered. Humans cheered. Even some of the alien observers seemed moved. For one perfect moment, everything was beautiful. Then the lights went out. The explosion came from the north wall of the temple, a blast of fire and stone that killed dozens instantly. Smoke filled the air. Screams echoed through the ancient halls. In the chaos, dark figures emerged from the shadows, moving with deadly precision. Assassins, Kelthari assassins. Their faces were hidden behind masks, their bodies covered in black armor. They moved through the panicking crowd like predators, killing anyone who stood in their way. Above the planet, ships decloaked. Kelthari warships, dozens of them, appearing from nowhere. They had hidden in the asteroid belt for weeks, waiting for this moment. Lord Bune had planned everything. If the Kelthari could not control the Valorians, they would destroy them. They would burn this world before they let humanity claim it. General Minho grabbed his communicator. All ships, battle stations, protect the planet. Do not let them reach the surface. But the human fleet was small, too small. They had come for a wedding, not a war. They had brought diplomats, not soldiers. Against the Kelthari armada, they stood no chance. In the temple, Taiho moved without thinking. His training took over. He grabbed Yuna's hand and pulled her behind a pillar as energy weapons flashed around them. Guards fell. Priests died. The beautiful ceremony became a nightmare of blood and fire. We have to get to the safe room, Yuna shouted over the chaos. Deep beneath the palace. They cannot reach us there. Lead the way. They ran. Around them, palace guards fought and died. The assassins were everywhere, appearing from corridors and shadows, their weapons cutting down anyone who resisted. Taiho had no weapon. He was an engineer, not a soldier, but he had other skills. They reached a narrow passage. Ahead, 3 assassins blocked the way. Behind them, more were coming. There was nowhere to run. Taiho looked around. He saw a control panel on the wall, a door mechanism, old technology, simple but effective. When I say run, he told Yuna, run straight ahead and do not stop. What are you going to do? Something stupid. He sprinted toward the assassins. They raised their weapons. He dove to the side, sliding across the polished floor, and reached the control panel. His fingers flew across the buttons. He did not know Valorian technology, but machines were machines. They all followed the same principles. The doors on either side of the corridor slammed shut, trapping 2 of the assassins behind thick metal. The 3rd assassin turned, surprised, and Taiho tackled him before he could fire. They struggled on the ground. The assassin was stronger, faster, better trained. But Taiho fought with desperation, with fury, with the knowledge that if he failed, Yuna would die. He smashed his forehead into the assassin's face. The mask cracked. The assassin stumbled. Taiho grabbed the fallen energy weapon and fired. The corridor was silent. "Run!" he shouted. They ran. They reached the royal chambers. More guards joined them, survivors of the initial attack. Taiho took command without thinking about it. He was not a general. He was not a strategist. But he understood systems, and a battle was just another system. "Seal the eastern wing," he ordered. "Block the ventilation shafts. They will try to use gas. Concentrate your forces at the main choke points. Do not try to hold everywhere. Hold what matters." The guards obeyed. They did not know why they obeyed a human. They just knew that he spoke with certainty, with clarity, with the calm voice of someone who had already accepted whatever outcome awaited. The fighting lasted for hours. Wave after wave of assassins pushed toward the royal chambers. The guards held. Barely. Bodies piled in the corridors. The ancient walls ran red with blood. In orbit, the battle was worse. Human ships burned. Kelthari weapons tore through hull plating and crew quarters without mercy. General Minho watched his fleet die and felt despair creeping into his heart. "We cannot hold," his first officer said. "We must retreat. If we retreat, they will bomb the planet from orbit. Everyone down there will die. If we stay, we will all die anyway." General Minho closed his eyes. He thought about Lieutenant Taiho, somewhere down on that planet, fighting for his life, fighting for his wife, fighting for people who were not even his own species. One man had stood up when no one else would. Perhaps it was time for others to stand as well. "All ships," he said into his communicator. "This is General Minho. I am not ordering anyone to stay. I am asking you to hold the line. I am asking you to give the people down there a chance. If you want to leave, leave. I will not blame you, but I am staying. Until the end." There was silence on the communication channels. Then, one by one, voices responded. "Staying. Staying. Staying." Every ship, every crew, every human in that fleet chose to stay. It would not be enough. They all knew it would not be enough. But sometimes courage is not about winning. Sometimes courage is about refusing to run. And in that refusal, something began to change. Because across the galaxy, other species were watching. They were watching humans die for people they had never met. They were watching a species that everyone had dismissed as weak and primitive stand against an empire that could crush them without effort. And some of those watching began to feel something they had not felt in a long time. Shame. Earth had emptied itself. Every ship, every shuttle, every vessel that could fly and fight was crossing the galaxy at maximum speed. The call had gone out just hours after the attack began. One of their own was fighting alone. One of their own was dying for strangers, and humanity answered. They were not soldiers, most of them. They were miners and traders and explorers. They flew cargo ships with welded-on weapons and passenger vessels with improvised armor. They came from colonies on the edge of known space, from research stations orbiting dead worlds, from everywhere and anywhere that humans had spread. The broadcast showed them coming. The galaxy watched in disbelief. "This is madness," a Vryn commentator said. These are not warships. They will be destroyed in minutes. Why are they doing this? A Tarani asked. The Valorians are not their people. The princess is not their blood. What do they gain? No one had an answer. The first wave of human reinforcements hit the Keltari fleet like a fist. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, outmatched in every way, but they fought with a fury that the Kelthari had never seen. Ships rammed into larger vessels, pilots ejecting at the last second or not ejecting at all. Freighters deliberately collided with weapon platforms, silencing guns that would have killed thousands. They are insane, a Kelthari commander reported. They do not retreat. They do not surrender. They just keep coming. On the surface, Tai-Ho heard the reports. The reinforcements were buying time, but they could not win. Not alone. Not against an empire like the Kelthari. Then something unexpected happened. The Vryn fleet jumped into the system. Hundreds of insectoid vessels, their hulls gleaming like chitin, their weapons already firing. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked the Kelthari from the flank. Lord Byun, watching from his command ship, felt the first chill of fear. Why? He demanded. The Vryn agreed to stay neutral. His answer came moments later, broadcast on all channels. The Vryn ambassador spoke in clicks and buzzes that were translated for all to hear. We watched you mock them. We watched you call them weak. We watched you laugh at their courage. And we said nothing. But now we watch them die for people they do not know, fighting a battle they cannot win. We watch them choose death over abandonment. The ambassador paused. We will not watch any longer. We will not be the species that stood by while the brave fell. Whatever our differences with humanity, they have shown us something we had forgotten. They have shown us what honor looks like. The Yashri arrived next, then the Molten Collective. Even some Torani warships broke from their fleet and joined the fight, their captains defying their own government. The galaxy was waking up. In the temple, the assassins made their final push. They had failed to kill the princess in the chaos. Now they came with everything they had left. 50 assassins against 20 guards and 1 injured human. Tai-Ho stood at the door of the royal chambers. He had a wound in his side from an earlier fight. Blood soaked through his uniform. He could barely stand, but he held his position. You should rest, Yuna said from behind him. Let the guards handle this. If the guards fall, I am the last line. I will not rest until you are safe. You might die. I already said my vows. He smiled, though it hurt. Until my last breath. I meant it. The assassins came. Tai-Ho fought. He was not a great warrior. He was not fast or strong or skilled, but he was determined. He refused to fall. Every time he was knocked down, he stood back up. Every time a blade cut him, he kept moving. The assassins had trained for years to kill. Tai-Ho had trained for years to fix things that were broken, and he would not let this be broken. The battle lasted minutes that felt like hours. When it was over, Tai-Ho stood alone among the bodies of his enemies. The guards had fallen. The assassins had fallen. Only he remained, swaying on his feet, his uniform more red than black. Yuna caught him as he collapsed. Hold on, she whispered. Help is coming. Just hold on. Did I protect you? He asked. His voice was weak. Yes, you protected everyone. Good. He closed his eyes. That is all I wanted. He did not see the end of the battle. He did not see the Kelthari fleet retreat in chaos, their attack broken by an alliance they had never expected. He did not see Lord Byun captured by Vryn soldiers. He did not see the galaxy's broadcasts change from mockery to awe. He only woke 3 days later in a medical bay with Yuna sitting beside him. You almost died, she said. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. Almost is not dead. He tried to sit up and failed. What happened? You happened. She took his hand. You showed the galaxy something it had forgotten. You showed them that courage is not about power. It is about choice. You chose to stand when you could have run. And because you stood, others found the courage to stand with you. Tai-Ho thought about this. I just did not want you to be alone. I know. Yuna leaned forward and kissed his forehead. And that is why you changed everything. The weeks that followed were chaos in a different way. The Kelthari Dominion faced sanctions from the Galactic Council. Lord Bayun was tried for crimes against peace and sentenced to exile on a prison moon. The other great powers, shamed by their inaction, offered aid to the Valorian evacuation. Humanity was no longer the youngest and weakest species in the room. They were something else now, something that made the older races nervous. Emperor Hansu called Taiho to the throne room. The old man was dying, everyone knew that, but his eyes were bright as he looked at the human who had saved his daughter and his people. "Kneel," the emperor said. Taiho knelt. "By the authority vested in me as Emperor of Valoria, I name you not merely consort, but son. You will carry our bloodline forward. You will be remembered in our histories forever. Rise, Prince Taiho of Valoria and Earth." Taiho rose. The court applauded. Somewhere, broadcasts carried the moment to billions of viewers. Later, in their private chambers, Yuna asked him how it felt. "Strange," he admitted. "I am still just an engineer who fixes things. You fixed an empire. I had help." He looked at her. "I could not have done any of this without you believing in me. I believed in you because you believed in my people. That is rare. That is precious." She moved closer to him. "The galaxy no longer laughs at us. No. Now they watch. They wonder. They ask themselves what humanity will do next. What will humanity do next?" Taiho smiled. "Whatever is needed. That is what we do. We see a problem and we try to fix it. We see people suffering and we try to help. We are not the strongest or the smartest or the oldest, but we show up. We try. And sometimes that is enough." Years later, the Valorian evacuation was complete. Billions of people had been moved to new worlds, their civilization preserved, their culture saved. The dying sun consumed an empty planet, burning away the memories of what had been. But the Valorians lived on, and beside them, always, were the humans. Princess Yuna, now Empress, stood with Prince Taiho on a balcony overlooking their new capital city. Their children played in the garden below, laughing in the sunlight of a young and healthy star. "The galaxy is different now," Yuna said. "They respect us. They respect humanity. They are even afraid a little." "Good." Taiho watched his children, a boy and a girl, chasing each other through the flowers. "Fear can be useful. But I hope they learn something more important than fear." "What is that?" "That the measure of a species is not power. It is not strength or intelligence or age. It is what they do when someone needs help. It is whether they stand up or sit down. It is whether they choose to care about strangers." He turned to look at his wife. "The galaxy laughed at you because you needed help. But needing help is not weakness. Ignoring those who need help is weakness. The galaxy was weak. I hope we helped make it stronger." Yuna took his hand. "You did more than that. You reminded them what they had forgotten. You reminded them what it means to be good." The sun set over the new Valorian homeworld, painting the sky in colors of gold and red. Somewhere in the galaxy, beings of 1,000 species told stories about the human who stood up when no one else would, about the princess who saw value where others saw nothing, about the moment when the galaxy stopped laughing and started learning. The story spread, the legend grew, and humanity, once mocked and dismissed, became something else. They became the species that showed up, and that, the older races finally understood, made them the most important species of all.